That's a great question too. I think there's a couple ways. One, I would say, is identifying what your true essence is. So like Paul, you have your own unique essence of what makes Paul, like who makes Paul Paul. And if everybody does their job in doing that, then I think we all get a chance to be inspired and share the hope with each other. So I think that's kind of number one, is just be true to yourself and just live more in that, become a more potent version of yourself, even in knowing that that potent version of yourself isn't going to necessarily be the person that everybody vibes with. The second part I would say is, but just looking to speak positively in general about people, for people, into their lives.
Welcome to the Believe the Hope podcast. I am your host, Paul Nottoli, and I am here with Mr. James Lewis. He is a creative for 15 years in the industry, specialized in videography and content creation. He's a producer of the None of Your Business podcast that hosted inside beautiful SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, or I guess Inglewood, wherever that's at, where the Raiders and the Rams play. He expertise to life, both behind the camera and editing suite, occasionally in front of the lens. With a voice that he can do a really awesome Barack Obama impression. So hopefully he will do that for us. And Sharp Eye, he's here to share his insights on what it takes to get started and ultimately succeed as a content creator. So thank you, James, for your time, and thank you for being here today.
I'm super excited. Thanks so much, Paul, for having me.
You've watched any of the interview I did with the None of Your Business podcast, any of that footage and audio, any of those clips were done by James, the man himself that's sitting across the screen from me, or on the microphone. I also wanted James here to talk about of hope and just that end, because he sees a lot he has a lot of conversations indirectly, because you're the one filming the content, you're the one editing the stuff. So you've with celebrities, professional athletes, high successful entrepreneurs, and a lot of times you don't get your perspective. Your creativity showing the perspective of what you're seeing and what you want to share, but rarely do you get your voice and your face out there. So I'm glad to have James. I consider him my friend. I hope we consider each other friends, and and I want to get his hope and all kinds of other experiences in life. So thank you.
Of course, if I've danced to This Is How We Do It, then of course with you, then of course we're friends. So
I forgot about Mexico.
All the times that you've done the karaoke to that song. So yeah, of course.
I think it's been a while, maybe a couple of years now. So we'll have to I'll have to get out there, and we'll have to have a night to we do it along with I'm not going to do it on the podcast to save everybody. I usually has to involve the bar setting, and I'd like to have people be a little bit to listen to it, to get into it a little bit. So first question I ask every guest is, because everyone has different experiences and thoughts on this, is what does hope mean to them personally?
I like that question. Hope to me is, I think, having a sense of confidence of a certain outcome in the future. So I think with hope, it's understanding that where things are today, maybe in this current moment, maybe the way circumstances are in the present day, may not be what one would hope them to be or would like them to be. But if you're able to have hope, that means there's a positive outlook on what could be at some point in the future. And having hope, I think, is a mindset that allows someone to endure whatever might be going on in their life today, or like I mentioned, certain circumstances or situations but to have a positive mindset to move forward in the future, knowing that things will in fact get better or that ideal outcome will happen at some point. And without hope, I think it's easy to slip into feeling defeated, feeling unable to affect positive change. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people go without hope for certain things in their life, but all it takes is a little bit and you can really start to change the way you think about things. And shortly thereafter, whatever situation you might be going through can really start to improve after doing that.
I mean, your sentiments on hope and have been shared a version of it. So it's usually something in the future, having faith towards something better, something brighter. A little different perspective on how they say it because of their own experiences, but usually it involves in the future. What to do is ask people maybe they can share, because I know everyone comes from different experiences, different backgrounds, different traumas or whatever. Maybe they're lacking hope right now. People share possible experience of where they maybe have been down on their luck and then have a lot of hope and then had used hope to get themselves out of that situation.
You're going to make me think on that one. That's a really good question because I want to provide a good answer, but then also be able to articulate it well. So this may be different than what other people have shared on your podcast. I would assume if people haven't already shared some really, maybe deep things, maybe some heavy things. And while I probably could come up with an example of that, but what first comes to mind is actually maybe a little bit more lighthearted, but it's a story in a situation I talk about often and reflect on often. And it taught me more than just about hope. So hopefully this will answer the question and provide some value. But this was back in when I was in 8th grade, actually middle school, 7th grade and 8th grade. So I played basketball growing up, and I was on the 7th grade basketball team, and our team was terrible. We were so bad. We played probably around 30 games and maybe only won like 4 or 5. You can count on one hand how many games we won that entire season. And so I know some people can probably relate to being on a team where, just not that great. So that was our 7th grade year. And then at the end of the 7th grade season, there was this guy who came. He was a part of a church, and this was a Christian school. And so him and his family came to be a part of the ministry for the church. But coincidentally, he actually played in the NBA and was really passionate about kids' sports and obviously coaching. And so he got involved with our basketball program. And through that end of that season, through the summer, we went through probably some of the most rigorous practices, trainings, drills. And he used to have these practices where the only thing we would do is just practice, say, dribbling or playing defense. And because he had played in the NBA and he was obviously retired, he was still good enough to play against us all. And he was actually really hard to guard, even as like a 8th grader, just because in order to play at the NBA level, you have to be really good, and that skill doesn't necessarily just fade away the minute you're done playing. And what I didn't realize in the first few months of doing these daily practices, even throughout the summer, but we were building a sense of hope within ourselves that hadn't quite been, we certainly hadn't experienced that yet. And we didn't really recognize that that's what it was. But getting into the next season, we had gotten so good. Like we had each player and our team as a whole had totally transformed. And one of the words that the coach, his name is Dave Jamerson, one of the words that he would always use is having an identity as a basketball player, as a basketball team. And he would go into every single game, regardless of who we were playing, even teams that on paper were way better than us, taller than us, stronger, faster, all of that. And he would have that belief that we were going to win the game. We had practiced, we had done the drills, we had built an identity of who we are and how we played our game. And he believed that if we had done that, regardless of who the opponent was, that we were going to win the game. And because we had experienced not winning very many games the previous year, it was this totally new mindset that was bestowed upon us by our coach. And that was the moment that hope started to kind of be built in us. We hadn't experienced what it was like to win, but someone else came along and taught us the skills, the actual practical, pragmatic skills, but then was also installing this new belief system in us that allowed us to have hope. And long story short, we ended up going 29-1 the next season and basically winning every tournament. We would win by 20, 30, 40 points. There was even one team we beat by 70 points, which was pretty crazy. But that was one of the highlights of kind of my adolescence, not just winning at that level, but also going through that entire experience. And I always talk about and, give credit to Coach Jamerson, who I'm still in contact with occasionally, and just realizing how much he taught us about how to win, the mindset required to win, and now realizing how he was instilling hope within us, even as 7th and 8th graders.
I think a lot of those, just in perspective, I played a lot of sports. And so even those things that you learned even at 7th or 8th grade, they carry over into college, even as an adult, because, you have to have someone believe in you or a system of people that are believing you on a consistent basis to show that, yes, you are something, I can do something. That small confidence, and before in some episodes where it's almost like it's a naive confidence, and not a naive confidence that you're delusional, but a naive confidence that, oh yeah, work, like this person believes in me, so why shouldn't I be able to do it? Because to have that unconsciously competent level first before you become what they call consciously competent at something. And hard work, that growth of just embrace the suck phase of everything, where you have, like you said, you have the most grueling practices, because there's growth and there's growth in all of those. And I think that's an incredible example because, I think there's a lot of good insights of community, belief, the right people around you, the right teammates around you that buy in, hard work. And you even mentioned, if you don't believe in yourself first, it's hard to really, regardless of what someone's telling you, if you don't believe in yourself first, then you're not. That's kind of, it's more of that, I hope I do better this year, versus, no, I'm putting in the work so that hope is there. Not only do I hope we do better, but also we know we're going to do better because there's some certainty based on the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. That's great.
How would you say someone maintains hope when times are tough?
For me, it comes down to another word, which is faith. And I think faith plays such a big part in having hope in the things we deal with as human beings and in our society. So for me, as a Bible-believing Christian, that's what it is for me. I realize that not everybody has the same mindset or believes the same thing, and that's totally fine. But for me, I just realize how important it is that I have something outside of myself, larger than myself to rely on in order to give me a level of peace when things are not going my way. Because it's going to happen regardless as a human being. Like there's obviously challenging times that happen to every single one of us. At the time of this recording, in the past 2 weeks, there's 2 hurricanes going through the southeast of the US. And it doesn't matter how prepared you might be for those storms. The storms can totally wreck all of your personal belongings and obviously emotionally and mentally do a lot of damage to families. And it's really tough. And so how do you still remain hopeful in situations like that? To me, you have to be yielding to a higher power, in my opinion. And so for me, that's my Christian faith. And so I rely on God a lot to help me see things that I'm help me to spiritually see things that I can't see with my physical eyes, and always just to speak to me in situations that I think are not going for me, that they're against me. One of the online mentors that I have, Myron Golden, he's, kind of he's a business coach, mentor, entrepreneur that teaches from biblical principles. And one of the things that he says often is, if it's not working, what does he say? I don't want to miss say, and other people have said something along the lines, but basically if something isn't working for you, it's working on you. So there's a process that you have to go through. If something's not working for you, meaning it's not going the way you anticipated, then it's working on you. There's something that's going to make you stronger, more resilient, more mature, more aware, more wise. And in that season, you have to be able to have hope in order to basically remain peace and remain sane, that it's okay, I'm going to get through this. But on the other side, there's going to be a much, much better result that's going to make all of this challenge worth it.
Love it. Yeah, because when it's not going your way, it does suck. You don't want it to be working on you. You want to work for you, but that's a good reminder that's that you will be more resilient and tougher and a stronger person to be able to handle the next level that you're trying to go to, which sometimes we don't get what we want because we're not prepared for that outcome yet. We're not the person we need to be into that.
Mm-hmm. I like that right there.
Welcome. Sometimes I have really, really relevant knowledge and wise words. Just kind of sit back and listen, but feeling the flow today.
For sure.
Say someone spreads more hope in their own communities and world being local, around the world.
That's a great question too. I think there's a couple ways. One, I would say, is identifying what your true essence is. So like Paul, you have your own unique essence of what makes Paul, like who makes Paul Paul. And I've gotten to know that over the years, and it brings me a lot of joy seeing you do karaoke, dancing, you being you, being goofy at times. Like that's who you are. And so I think number one is just finding out what that essence is in yourself and just doing that, being that person. Coupled with that, that also means that, well, maybe Paul, your personality and the way that you are doesn't speak to everybody. Maybe that's not their thing. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with you or anybody else. But if you remain who you are, true to yourself, then the people who are meant to be impacted by you, they will resonate. They will be connected to you in the way that I've been able to. And if everybody does their job in doing that, then I think we all get a chance to be inspired and share the hope with each other. So I think that's kind of number one, is just be true to yourself and just live more in that, become a more potent version of yourself, even, and knowing that that potent version of yourself isn't going to necessarily be the person that everybody vibes with. The second part I would say is, and this applies to maybe more a broader stroke of people, but just looking to speak positively in general about people, for people, into their lives. There's obviously a lot of negativity that we are unconsciously consuming on any given basis. We just turn on, say, the news, and especially during this election year, there's just a lot of extra noise. And not to say that that stuff isn't important, but it's really easy to go down the path of hearing all of the negative talk and the energy, the complaining, the pointing of fingers. And so that, in my opinion, doesn't lead to more hope or more spreading of hope. And so there kind of has to be a counterbalance of speaking positive, making making compliments or encouraging other people. And it doesn't have to be anything big or at a national scale, but just looking to find opportunities to lift other people up. Because I think sometimes just the smallest thing can make the biggest difference. And I know that's probably something cliche to
You're not the
say,
only
but it
interview
really,
that has said that over the last over the last 2 months. So it gets brought up a lot, that the one question. So yeah, it's not cliche at all, because you're not the only person that has talked about it in some way, shape, or form.
yeah, man, it's true. I mean, there's times where people have, like, something so small, they've spoken to me or pointed out something like, "Hey, I like your shirt," or, "Man, you have a nice smile." And it's like, I wasn't expecting that. And I might even say, well, I don't necessarily need anybody to compliment me. Like, I'm fine in myself and my own skin. But after hearing somebody say that to me, it's like, oh, wow, that actually was nice of them to do that. Like, wow, they went out of their own way to say something to me to, you know, make me feel better about myself. So I would say those two things: being yourself, and then don't be afraid to uplift others, even if it's small.
Because like, a lot of definitions of hope or are better in the future. Something is true in the future. How does one maintain that hope for the future, but also are grounded in the reality of whatever the situation they're in, so they can take those actions to move towards that better future?
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I've had to kind of figure that process out myself, and I'm still in the process of doing so. I'm a I'm a future thinker. I spend way more time thinking in the future than the present or the past. And because of that, I come up with what I think are good ideas and plans and things that can be done, to execute. But sometimes that's at the expense of living in reality and understanding what's happening today. And one thing that's helped me is journaling. And I should do this way more often than I do, but journaling and affirmations. And it's interesting you asked that question, because more recently I've been spending more time in front of the camera. I've actually kind of challenged myself to spend more time in front of the camera. And I found that it was somewhat therapeutic for me, maybe because I spend so much time in my head thinking about the future and I'm not able to be as present. And so after doing this challenge that I had set out to do, I actually found myself just speaking, like, to the camera, like, really in just a kind of a way of, if I was journaling, but instead of writing, which I do sometimes, but journaling in front of a camera with really no intention of ever posting or sharing it. But what it allows me to do is kind of remain present and speak kind of how I'm feeling. what my thoughts are, but I think there's something significant that happens when I do that. I can't really speak too much on it because I'm still in like the early stages of doing that. But in the short period of time that I have, I've noticed that some of the thinking that I do in my head about the future, I speak it kind of in the present, or I'm like able to articulate my thoughts in the present. And it almost seems like I move towards that direction faster. I don't know if I'm explaining that the way I hope I am, but it's like I move further along the journey of making whatever those plans are in my head happen by speaking in the present, if that makes sense.
It's
It may
there's
not make any
well,
sense at all,
I
but
think you are, because even we'll just use the Bible as an example. Is there's plenty of verses that say like, speak one into existence, ask God, and as if it's already happening to you. It's not only the Bible. There's other affirmations. There's people like Tony Robbins. There's all kinds of people that say like, speak as if it's occurring, regardless of if it's not. So if you're a millionaire, you speak as if you're a millionaire, because if you don't, then it's harder to do all the action steps and put yourself in positions to reach that goal or whatever it is. So I do think that makes sense, because if you're taking those future thoughts and journaling them in the present, you're taking what you want in the future, or the ideas you have in the future, and you're speaking that into, I guess, existence in the present. So I think the thoughts of intentions, where those are at, is typically how we our sail goes, or whatever you want to call it, if we use a boat analogy. that's the
yeah,
way we drift to. So if it is negativity, um, if it is a victim mentality, typically you surround yourself, or you hang out in an area where you're constantly listening to things that are in those areas. If it's more positive, if it's more trying to look towards the people that are trying to get you to a better outcome, a better goal, change your life, typically you stop listening to certain things, you stop hanging around people as much, you do other things, I think, that go in that direction. So I've never thought about journaling with a mic, like a camera on, to just the present of what you want in the future. But I like that idea. Very good. I should probably try to do that myself. So
I I appreciate that. I want to come back to something you said, but I'll just mention, even this morning, I had just before I kind of got my day started, I just sat outside, and where I normally would have brought the camera out to like record, I actually didn't even have the camera, and I was literally just speaking. There's people walking by, and I'm just doing my thing, just speaking as if maybe they thought I was on the phone. But I've really enjoyed that practice. So yeah. And while you were talking, what I imagined was, have you ever seen where there's like a cup or glass, and it's got really dirty water in it? It's like all muddy, you can't see through it. And then what they'll do is they'll take either another cup or like a stream, and just by pouring that in, it washes out all of the dirt, just by pouring in like new, clean water. And so when you were talking, like, that's the visual that I got. So I just thought that was really cool.
and I guess that's another way to look at what you were saying, is that you're pouring present, positive present, to wash out what you want, or wash you to the what negative, or moving towards the future, for sure. It's Cabernet, bunnies, and stealing Bill's biscuits. Anything else you want? Any other insights? Those are, for those listening, those are some inside jokes I had to throw in there, just because, at least I don't think they get old. He might be sick of hearing the joke, but they never get old. Is there any other insights that you would like to share?
That's funny. For the people who know the inside jokes, I'm sure they're getting a kick out of
They'll get a
you
kick out of
mentioned
it, but I think, what is there, like 10 people that actually know about that?
that. Right. I would just say what comes to mind for me right now is the importance of being around positive people. And like my basketball coach, Coach Jamerson, I consider him to be a positive person, influence on my life in that season. Obviously, still has a lasting impact on my life today. Obviously, Paul, I consider you someone who is a positive person who has this mission of sharing the message of believe the hope. So I just see the importance of being around people like that because of some of the things that we talked about. We don't even have to try, and our ears and our mind are filled with some of that dirt in our glass of water. And the glass of water is it's our responsibility to take care of it. It's ours. And we're the ones who have to live with whatever's inside of it. And so getting around other people, in my opinion, is like pouring that clear water in. And your cup is going to be filled with whatever contents are filled up with it. So if you make a conscious effort to be around positive people, then your cup will be full of nice, clear water to which then you can start pouring in other people's lives.
Beautiful way to end it.
I appreciate it.
People find out more about you and what you're doing. Keep up with all their James Lewis, and you want to tell us, and as Barack Obama, to finish this off, that'd be really good, because I love it. I love when you do this.
Put me on the spot. All right, let's see what I can do.
It's okay. If it's not the greatest, it's all right. But I think if anybody got this far, they're probably like, I don't know what Cab and Bunnies and Bill's Biscuits are, but I know who Barack Obama is.
Right. All right, let's see what I can do. So if you enjoyed this podcast episode and you want to find out more about me, my name is James Lewis. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Great Telling. Let me be clear. I will teach you to create content. And if I don't mind myself, and Michelle, she really thinks so too. Well, the content on this channel is pretty good. Matter of fact, it's fantastic. So follow me there on YouTube, and I'll teach you how to create content to the best of your ability. That's all I got.
Beautiful,
man.
James. Beautiful, Barack. Maybe I'll put your Barack Obama's name so I get some just for the episode. Will be the most popular episode just because we people into listening, because Barack Obama made an appearance at the end.
A little SEO.
Oh, yep. Never heard anybody. Yeah. Thank you so much, James, for your insight. Like I said, usually behind the lens, but you have a lot of great experiences because of being in the position that you are, making content, meeting the people, editing the interviews, etc. So yeah, it's nice to get you in front of the camera. I'm glad I could push you a little bit into something like that as well. Help you work towards that and insights, because it's hard not to do what you do and not have something positive come out of that, or have some experience that comes out of that. So to inspire more hope.
I appreciate that, man. You're the second person who's asked me to be on their podcast. And so you're my number 2. So I appreciate that. Thanks so much for having me. This was a great conversation.
And until next time, we'll bring you another episode of the Believe the Hope podcast.